What's up, everybody? This is 10X Generation, and this is my road to $1 billion. So today a lot has happened. I thought about a lot of things, and I got a lot to talk about. So I'm just going to jump right into it. So I'm going to first do a brief overview of the technical stuff that I did, because it gets a little technical. And then I'm going to go into the more business side of things in terms of this car. So if you stuck around, if you've been around for a little while, I am making, or if you haven't, I am a tech entrepreneur, building a startup company, and I have 2 apps already out on the App Store, and I'm working on my new feature, the computer sharing platform, where users can earn passive income by sharing their PC with others through the internet, and giving those without access to high-level hardware access to it remotely at a much lower price point than the competition. So that's what I'm working on, and that's what I'm building. And my schedule to do this was about a year to build it all out. But I challenged myself to do it in a week, and I have my approach to building this has changed. Right now, I'm building an MVP, building this platform through Discord, and while it has accelerated the schedule by a whole lot, it still requires quite a bit of programming. So it requires a database, because Discord does not allow you to store data like that. It's not super straightforward. So I have to build a database, and I have to build an API. So yesterday I built out the database, or the days before I built out the database. I've been tweaking that a little bit as I'm thinking through it more and building out the functions. And I've been building some of the functions. But here are some interesting concepts within it. So the database is basically just a computer hosted somewhere in the cloud. And I can change how that data looks, how it's structured, and what's in it using a thing called MySQL, or just SQL, which stands for structured query language. It's just that's the the standard for databases. So you could build out your databases like that. And there's several tables that you need to make. So maybe a table of users, table of computers, a table of log files, all these things, and there's relationships between them. It's not super difficult to make these tables, but the trick is to make it very robust, make it secure, and make it scalable. So that's the things I was working on, and make sure the relationships between them are made properly, because there's 3 different types of relationships, and there's different ways to configure it, and it uses a little bit of thinking to do it correctly, so planning and all that stuff. But it's quite fun. I like doing this stuff. And the way you get access to this computer with the database is basically it's kind of like a URL, but not really. You have an access point, and then you could just go in and start throwing those commands at it and changing it up. But of course, if I just have it public and have a Discord server connecting to it, someone could just look at the Discord server and say, oh, look, we're connecting this database. Let me connect to it, me the hacker, and change all these values. So change how much money I have, change this, change that, cause a mess of nonsense. So you have to add a little layer of security. And the way I did this is through a thing called an API, through Lambda functions. So within AWS still, there is a thing called Lambda functions, which is basically another computer that's function is to run programs on the cloud, and I can connect to those through the internet, right? So those commands, think of it as like a doorway into the database to manipulate the data, to basically give those commands on my behalf, and they can only execute those commands in the way that I specify. And I can give that access to the Discord bot, and that's much more secure. But how do you segment out this database from allowing other people to come in? Well, you could do a thing called create a VPS. And a VPS stands for virtual private server. If I got that wrong, of course you can let me know. But a virtual private server. And you could think about it like this. So over here you have a container, that's your database. Over here, you have your door, right? And that gives you access to the database. What the VPS does is draw a box around it. That's what it does. And says the only thing that could talk to this database, this bucket, is the things inside this house, inside this box. That's a virtual private server. So you could also think about it a bit more technically. It's like it's creating a private server. I think it's called a NAT. I'm still learning through this stuff, so it may not be called a NAT, but creating a private server within a larger server in the cloud somewhere at Amazon, one of their data centers, right? So yeah, that's what that does. And that door is, like I said, the API call that can be called by anyone on the internet, but they can only do it in the way I want you to, right? And also in this little box, I have drawn out a tiny little back door, right? So I can directly interface with this container, with the database, without having to go through the main door, right? And this is super necessary because as this platform is growing and since it's very new, I'm going to be doing a lot of things manually, mostly the money handling stuff. And for review, I'm going to manually review the logs. I'm going to manually review some of the connection details and making sure people aren't trying to get over on anything. And I will be the one facilitating the buying and selling of these tokens, which will allow you to make money and also get access to other people's computer. So I will be doing that manually. And so what you could do within this virtual private server is create a little opening so that only my computer on my network can get in. So now I can just open up my laptop. I can log in, of course, with my username and password, and I can start typing in commands. But if you were to take that same computer and go to McDonald's and type it in, it wouldn't work. It's kind of cool. So yeah, so that's what I've set up, and I don't have all the functions done. I only got 2.5 done. So it's taking a little bit of time because I have to go back and edit the database a couple times as I'm thinking about it more and more and more. I'm going to keep changing the database. And yeah, another interesting thing that I had to do. Yeah, this is getting kind of technical. I don't know if you guys are techie, but this is all part of the business. Another part I had to do was creating these Lambda functions. So Amazon does have a thing called an IDE. I forgot what an IDE is, but it's an editor. I forgot what it stands for, but basically it's like it's a command line. You could program in it. So I could get Python, that's the language I'm programming in. I can program within the website of AWS, and then I execute those and launch it and then start using it as I described before. But the issue is that it doesn't provide an easy way to add in additional functions and libraries, because Python and the Python that it's pre-installed on Amazon only has certain core functions, core libraries, but I will need more to do things like access the SQL database, to generate UUIDs, things like that. So what I did before in the 10th grade when I was building my bus tracking app was, what I literally did was I wrote out all the commands, I built out everything on my computer, and then I zipped it up, and then I threw it, I uploaded it to Amazon, and then I tested it. And that process was very long. That's part of the reason why it took me a whole year to develop it, because it just took a really long time. Luckily now I have evolved. I'm going to use the command line interface. And basically what that allows me to do is have advanced commands. One of the commands are advanced functions for AWS. And one of the things I could do is create a container through Docker. If you don't know what a container is, it's pretty cool. So this server that I was talking about up in the cloud, this box, this virtual private server, has an environment, right? It has a certain operating system. It has a certain amount of pre-installed commands and executions and all this stuff. And at the end of the day, it's different from my computer. It's different from most other computers, right? It's a server, right? So when I try to execute the commands that I program on the computer and then the computer I have at home, it's going to do different things. It's not gonna really work because it's two different environments. What Docker does and these containers is allow you to create partitions inside of your own computer that is like a mini version of the server up in the cloud, of the computer up in the cloud. So Docker allows you to very easily create these containers, and the containers contain the entire environment for something like an AWS computer, or I don't know, whatever else what you want to do, right? And it's not like it's kind of like like an emulator. It's pretty much an emulator, pretty much. That's almost exactly what it is. It's an emulator for computers of all sorts. And the command line interface allows you to spin up these containers very quickly based off of your parameters. So what that allows me to do, instead of having to type inside of AWS or type and test it within AWS, or type within my own on the computer and then wrap it up in a bow and then upload it and then test it, which takes literally a couple of minutes. All I could do is create a container of AWS on my computer, spin up an instance of a Lambda function because it's pretending to be AWS, spin up an instance of a Lambda function, and then execute it all on my computer within seconds. So this really speeds up development time. And this is something that really got me excited when I was working. I was like, whoa, this is really, really cool. And yeah, I'm a programmer. I'm kind of a geek. What can I say? I thought this was really, really cool. And I whatever we learn, right? So that's the other thing. So got a lot done, and I'm having fun. I didn't get as much done as I wanted to, but we got some done and we learned a lot. Now on the business side. So yesterday I bought a car, or I financed a car. So I'm using the money. I'm paying myself through the business. I'm on my own salary and I'm paying myself through the business. And I'm using that money to live and exist and also finance this car. But after walking out of the dealership, I realized that I kind of got finessed a little bit. Maybe, maybe not. I just wasn't exactly clear of how much I would be paying. And after opening it up, whoa, I'm paying double the amount of the car because my interest rate is so high. It's about 17% per year, APR, right? Meaning every single year I have to pay an additional 17% on the principal. Asterisk or something like that. At the end of the day, and when I fully pay off this loan, if I go based off of that schedule, I'm going to be paying almost $50,000 for not a $50,000 car, for like a $25,000 car. Ridiculous. And this kind of stressed me out because it's like, man, do I pay myself more through the salary? No, because my primary focus is scaling the business. I can't do that when I'm trying to pay for a car and paying all the interest for the car. Do I do that? Do I hurry up and pay off the entire car? No, I don't really want to do that because if I can't use business funds for personal assets, right? So if I want to pay for the car, what I have to do is increase my salary by a whole bunch, and then the government will come in and take out their scoop. If you ever ran employment, if you ever did anything like that, you know how much money they take, right? They take a big old chunk of money. And then I use the rest of the money, pay off the car. I don't want to do that because that's going to dilute the funds for the business. Not really. I don't want to do that. And I was kind of stuck. I was like, what should I do? But I got an amazing comment by a genius in the comments. And you know who you are. It was a brilliant comment. He said, why don't you pay yourself? Why don't you buy the car using your business from yourself. Let's unpack that for a second. So a business, the way you're supposed, if you ever have a business, you are supposed to treat it as if it's a different entity. It's a different legal entity and a different financial entity. And the reason why you do this is for legal liability. So basically what that means, I'm going off a tangent, but it's all important. If you have a business, a huge business where you're interfacing and interacting and serving millions, right? Just a probability standpoint, you're going to get sued by someone, right? And you get sued for a lot of money depending on what you're doing, right? You can have something benign, as simple as baby food, or you could be juggling and operating and managing millions of dollars for clients. If, when you get sued, they say, okay, you lost. Let me take all the money in your bank account to pay back these millions of people. Or let me take your house, let me take your car, let me take everything you own personally to pay back these people. A business wouldn't be worth it, because all you got to do is mess up and trip once and your entire life is gone. So businesses were invented and this legal liability was created so that if you mess up and when you mess up and when someone sues you, and if they win, the only things on the line are the business, right? So they may take your business, facility or your business vehicle or whatever else, or your business funds, but they won't touch your personal funds. So legal liability, you got to keep those funds separate, because if you don't keep those funds separate and those assets separate, they can say, that legal liability can be voided, which can cause major problems. So bottom line, your business and your personal stuff should be separate. Separate business accounts, separate bank accounts, separate cards, separate everything, right? Because they're separate, I can buy from myself from my business because it's a different entity. And using my business funds pay myself, right? So, yeah, hopefully that makes sense. So I'm going to say it just one more time. So I have the car. I have to pay all this money for it every single month. And I don't have enough money in my bank account to pay it off right now. And I don't want to increase my salary too much, because then the government's going to come in and take a whole lot of that money. And then it's too much money going out. And the only benefit I get is building my credit and having a car. What I can do is say, hey, business, would you like to buy a car? Of course, business, I would love to buy your car. Here's a whole bunch of money for the car. Thanks for the car. But it's all me. It's all me. And then now the business is the owner of the car is the business. And now I have a whole bunch of money to pay for the car. And I can maintain my salary, but I can chop up the payment of the car and slowly roll that out to the car company. And I could pay off the entire car in a year without ever increasing my salary and without ever having to give up away a bunch more money to the government through employment tax related stuff. And because business credit cards tend to have a higher limit than personal credit cards, I could put the entire purchase on my credit card, right? Theoretically, I could put the entire purchase on my credit card, and so not only am I slowly paying back the car, or not only am I building the credit for myself, but I'm also building credit for my business. All the while I get to keep the car and skirting around having to pay the insane interest that will be accrued due to me having very little credit history and me being young and stuff like that. So, of course, this is all theoretical. Seems logical, but I'm going to talk to a financial advisor one of these days to make sure there's nothing I'm overlooking. But yeah, that's my solution. That's what I'm going to go ahead and end up try doing. And yeah, that's pretty exciting. And I want to say thank you again for the the commenter who made that fantastic comment. Thank you so much. But yeah, I think that's a little business hack if that works. But yeah, I think that's really it. I don't have anything else to say except for I got to get back to work programming. But if you found this interesting, if you found this informative, if you found this anything, please leave a like, comment, and subscribe. I make these videos every single day. So I'll see you guys tomorrow.